Ever find yourself scrolling online and you see someone with like the most amazing hair and you just think, oh, they're so lucky.
Yeah, like it's effortless,
Right,
right?
totally. But what if like some of those looks weren't, just natural? What if it was actually like artistry?
I mean, I, for one, would love to know their secrets.
Me too.
Yeah.
And that's actually a perfect intro to today's deep dive. We're diving into the world of Oksana Nassisi. So she is a New York City artist, but she's not just like any artist. She's a master of balayage.
Balayage. Okay. For those of us who aren't like hair obsessed, what is that exactly?
Yeah, so basically it's that technique where you get those like perfectly blended highlights. They look super natural, not at all like chunky or streaky.
Ah, okay, I get it. So it takes a lot of skill to make it look that natural, right?
Exactly. And here's the even cooler part. So on top of being this incredible hairstylist, she's also a painter.
Yeah.
And she's super into the Renaissance, like especially Leonardo da Vinci.
Wow. Okay, so we've got someone who's clearly very talented and also seems to like blend these two worlds, hairstyling and fine art. That's so interesting to me
Mhm.
because it's not just about making hair look good. It's about using these artistic principles to do it.
You totally get it. When I was looking at Oksana's work, the balayage, it's like shockingly natural looking.
Right, like you wouldn't even know it was colored.
Exactly. And that's got to take some serious skill, right? To make it look that effortless.
For sure.
Ah,
I feel like so often we think about like drastic makeovers or, following whatever the trend of the moment is, but she seems to be all about enhancing natural beauty, wouldn't you say?
100%. It's like she's accentuating what's already there instead of trying to completely change it.
And to do that well, you need to have a deep understanding of like color theory, hair texture, all of it. And I think that's where the artistry comes in.
It's like you can't fake that kind of knowledge. She must really understand the science of it all, too, not just the aesthetics.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oksana has talked about how balayage lets her play with light and shadow in the hair. It's like those brushstrokes you see in a painting, but with hair.
Oh, I love that. It's like invisible artistry almost.
Hmm.
And it makes me think about her love of Renaissance art, too. Like Da Vinci and those masters, they weren't exactly going for shock value either, were they?
Right. It was all about the subtle details, that realism, making something look so lifelike, it's almost magical.
Exactly. So maybe there is a connection there. Like both balayage and classical painting need that really deep understanding of light, shadow, form.
It's fascinating, right? There's a reason why we're still so drawn to Da Vinci's sfumato technique, those soft transitions between colors.
Oh, totally. It's like he somehow blended colors in a way that nobody else could. And in a way, it's like Oksana is doing something similar with hair.
And succeeding. I mean, her work is
Yeah.
incredible. Now, okay, so we have this super talented hairstylist approaching her work like a true artist, obviously inspired by these Renaissance masters, but she doesn't stop there, does she? Tell me about her paintings.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Because, yeah, her paintings are a whole other layer of this story. So what I found really interesting was that she's drawn to these, like, classic themes. Love, nature, serenity. But there's often this touch of surrealism, too.
Okay, so like imagine a still life, but with a twist,
Yeah.
or a figure study that feels kind of dreamlike.
You've got it. It's like she's taking these traditional forms and infusing them with her own unique perspective. It's this really cool blend of the classical and the totally unexpected.
I'm picturing like a Renaissance painting, but with a modern, maybe even a little edgy twist.
Exactly. Which makes me wonder why the Renaissance, out of all the periods in art history, why is she so drawn to that one in particular, especially knowing what we know about her approach to balayage?
That's such a good question. And I think it might go back to what we were talking about earlier, that mastery of light and form. The Renaissance was this time of incredible artistic innovation. Like they were really pushing boundaries. Maybe it's that technical brilliance she's drawn to, that ability to capture these nuances, both in human emotion and the natural world, with such precision.
Yeah. Or maybe it's the timelessness of it, Like, those works still resonate with us centuries later.
Right. There's something so enduring about them.
Mhm.
And I feel like we see that same quality in Oksana's work, too. It's not about chasing trends. It's about creating something that feels timeless, that speaks to something deeper.
Okay, so much to unpack there. I'm already seeing so many connections between her hairstyling and her paintings. But before we dive deeper into that, we need to talk about another huge source of inspiration for her, New York City. Because we all know that city has a certain energy, right?
Absolutely. New York City is like a constant whirlwind of inspiration.
I can only imagine. So after the break, let's talk about how living and working in that environment might influence her art.
It's like walking down the street, and every corner you turn, there's something new to see, hear, experience.
And that energy, it must seep into everything, right? like even if you're not consciously trying to capture it in your work.
Totally. I'm curious, did she ever talk about specific things in New York that she finds inspiring?
She doesn't get super specific in the interview we're looking at, but she does talk about how the city's architecture, the design, even just the people, all of it feeds into her creative process.
I can see that, the way she blends those classical influences with something that feels very modern.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
like she's bridging those two worlds. But I did notice one painting, and this kind of surprised me. It was a chapati oven.
Oh, what?
A chapati oven, like the thing you cook bread in. It was really beautifully done, but kind of an unexpected subject, right?
Yeah, not exactly your typical New York City scene. Why do you think she chose to paint that?
Honestly, I'm not sure. But it made me think about how she's always looking for beauty in unexpected places.
Right, like she doesn't limit herself to what's traditionally considered artistic or beautiful.
Exactly. And maybe that's part of what makes her work so compelling. She's not afraid to experiment, to find those hidden gems of inspiration in everyday life.
It's like she's challenging our perceptions of what art can be,
Yeah.
you know? Because why not a chapati oven? It's a symbol of warmth, nourishment. It has this cultural significance. There's beauty in that, too.
I love that perspective, and it makes me think about her approach to balayage again, too. Like, she's not trying to force something onto someone's hair. She's trying to find and enhance the beauty that's already there.
Absolutely. It's about celebrating what makes each person unique, whether it's their hair texture, their color, their personal style. And I think that sensitivity to individuality, that appreciation for diversity, it definitely reflects that New York City spirit, don't you think?
Absolutely, because in a way, New York is all about embracing those differences, right? It's a melting pot of cultures and perspectives.
Exactly. And that brings us to another interesting point about Oksana's influences. Her trip to India. Remember, we were talking about that earlier.
Oh, yes. Her journey to Vrindavan. Tell me everything.
So for those who might not know, Vrindavan is considered a holy city by followers of Krishna. And it's known for its many temples, this really peaceful, spiritual atmosphere.
It sounds amazing. Did you talk about how that experience impacted her?
She did. It sounds like it was a very transformative trip for her. And while New York might be this whirlwind of energy, Vrindavan seems to have offered her a sense of peace, a connection to something larger than herself.
It's like those two places, New York and Vrindavan, they represent such different energies, but she's somehow able to draw inspiration from both. It's fascinating, isn't it? How our experiences, even those that seem completely opposite, can shape our creative voices.
It's like those experiences become threads in the tapestry of who we are as artists, wouldn't you say?
I love that analogy. And it makes me think about Oksana's work as a whole. She's taking these threads, the precision of the Renaissance, the vibrancy of New York, the spirituality of India, and she's weaving them together to create something entirely her own.
Exactly. It's not just about the individual influences, it's about how she combines them, how she filters them through her unique perspective.
And that's what makes her work so captivating. It's like a conversation between all of these different elements, but it ultimately comes back to her vision, her voice. So after the break, let's talk about what we can all learn from Oksana's story. Because whether you are an artist, a hairstylist, or just someone who appreciates beauty, there's something really inspiring about her journey.
Absolutely. And I think there are some really valuable takeaways here about finding inspiration in unexpected places, about embracing your own unique creative voice, and about the power of art to connect us to something larger than ourselves.
So she went from like the energy of New York City to like the complete kind of opposite feeling in India.
Right, like if New York is constantly in motion, Vrindavan seems to be about stillness.
Totally. Did she talk about how like being in that environment changed her? Or like did it influence her work in any specific way?
Yeah, it's interesting because it doesn't sound like it was just about, like the colors or the sounds or even like the religious aspects of the place,
Right.
but more like a shift in focus.
Okay, I'm curious. Tell me more about that.
So she talks about how Vrindavan brought her this new sense of like peace and serenity, a connection to like something bigger than herself, which makes sense, right? I mean, it's considered a holy city.
Totally.
And I feel like you can see that reflected in her work now, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like even her New York paintings, they have this tranquility to them.
It's like she brought that feeling back with her. It wasn't just about the place itself.
It's like she tapped into something there. And it's still with her, influencing her art.
Okay, so we have this artist. She's drawing inspiration from like the Renaissance masters, the crazy energy of New York City, and now this like deep spirituality of India.
It's pretty incredible, right?
It really is. But it's not just about the places or the things she's seen, it's how she puts it all together, right? Like it's her unique vision. That's what makes it so special.
100%.
Oh,
And that's what I find so inspiring about Oksana's story. She shows us that we can find beauty and inspiration everywhere.
yeah, like maybe we don't all live in New York City or travel to India, but we can still learn to see the world through an artist's eyes.
Exactly. It's about being open to new experiences, to different ways of seeing things.
And like you were saying before, it's about finding those connections between things that might seem totally different on the surface.
Right. Like who would have thought that a Renaissance painting and a chapati oven could share a common thread? But Oksana helps us see those connections.
She really does. So maybe it's not just about the specific places or even the art forms themselves.
It's more about that underlying philosophy
Yes, like that openness to beauty wherever you find it.
and that willingness to experiment, to bring together different influences and create something totally new and exciting in your own.
Well said. It's been so fun diving into Oksana's world today. It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. And you know what? I think that's the mark of a true artist, isn't it? When their work stays with you long after you've experienced it.
100% agree. Oksana Nassisi, everybody. Go check out her work if you haven't already. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating look at art, creativity, and the